Welcome into Chatterbox Bengals. I am your host, Stone Shields, and Cincinnati, of course, played a football game last night, and there's plenty to talk about on the heels of that football game. They lost to Philadelphia 34-27. Plenty of good, some great, plenty of bad, some really bad to break down in this football game. Going to be talking about that here on today's show, but a friendly reminder to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, youtube.com/chatterboxsports. We will have you covered all Bengals season and really all year long here at the channel. We got plenty of Reds content going out for you guys right now. Bengals stuff, of course, right now and on the horizon once the regular season begins as well. So your one-stop shop for Cincinnati sports coverage right here at Chatterbox Sports. So help us out, approaching 18,000 subscribers. Hit that sub button for me right now, youtube.com/Chatterbox Sports. Okay, plenty of good, plenty of bad in last night's ball game on the road in Philadelphia. Let's talk about the good first. And I do want to make note, my buddy Austin Elmore pointed out in the preseason, there's really two things that you're thinking about. One, not getting hurt, right? And I think for the most part, Cincinnati escaped the game without suffering any serious injuries. The next thing is to not overreact. Well, we're going to be overreacting just a little bit here on today's show because what we saw defensively and really what we saw throughout the entirety of the football game kind of reminded me, and I'm sure reminded a lot of you as well, of the 2024 regular season. That obviously is something the Bengals are trying to avoid here in 2025. But let's start with the good. Joe Burrow, of course, 9 of 10. He missed his first throw to T. Higgins. One that Higgins probably could have caught, but certainly from Joe Burrow's standards, not a great throw from Burrow. But from there, he was locked in, right? Through touchdown, two touchdown passes. After that, 9 of 10 through the air, and just looked like Joe Burrow right now. I think a lot of people were acting like, oh my goodness, like that was a great game by Joe Burrow. And it was great to see him go out there and execute at a high level, but he didn't really do anything that, wowed you, right? He just kind of did, the typical Joe Burrow stuff, took the completion, right, got the ball out of his hand quickly, and kind of just was very methodical in the two drives in which he was the quarterback in this football game. And we'll see. I think certainly we're all excited about watching him on Monday night against the Washington Commanders, which should be a full half of football if Zach Taylor sticks to that plan. Shemar Stewart, of course, fantastic as well. He's one-on-one with the outside with a guy like Keely Ringo, who is a good, solid football player, certainly great at Georgia, but, the Bengals, Shemar Stewart against the twos there of Philadelphia, one-on-one situation. That's not going to go well for the opposition. And obviously, Shemar was brilliant. He flashed that once again last night. But there's other things I want to talk about offensively. I do think the best play, by the way, from Burrow was actually on the play that got called back when they were going down to score a touchdown after the chop block was called on Lucas Patrick, which was interesting because Patrick kind of just tripped and fell, and that knocked him into the legs of a Philadelphia Eagle player, and that resulted in the penalty. But that was kind of the first time we saw Burrow, have to go off script a little bit. Nobody was open initially. He had to roll out to his right, extend the play like Joe Burrow does, and he actually found Shemar Stewart in the end zone. Thought that was a beautiful play, beautiful catch from Shemar, but obviously that ended up coming back, and they later scored on the drive a couple of plays later. But really, to me, that play that got called back was the most impressive one that we saw from Joe Burrow, and that kind of was a sign like, okay, Joe Burrow's back and playing football when you see him roll out like that, extend, and make a good throw in the end zone to his buddy Shemar Stewart. But other good things offensively, and I think the number one thing to point out is Dylan Fairchild. He, of course, was drafted in the 3rd round out of Georgia, and ever since the Bengals made that selection of Dylan Fairchild, the messaging has been very clear. It's a guy that's going to come in, and he is expected to be the starter at that left guard spot for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think the fan base and the team, coaching staff as well, can kind of take a collective sigh of relief here after the performance of Dylan Fairchild. He was really, really good in those two drives he was out there. Did not allow any pressures on Joe Burrow. Also had a great block that opened up Chase Brown. We'll talk about him in a second, but really impressed with what we saw from Dylan Fairchild. And I think going into the game week 1 against Cleveland, assuming he's going to be the guy if he doesn't get hurt, of course, I think you feel a little bit better after those two drives that you saw in this preseason opener against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Lucas Patrick, on the other hand, he was kind of the one weak link, right, for the offensive line last night. You saw him get beat, but based on what Cody Ford did throughout the remainder of the football game, to me, unless you bring in someone else, sign somebody here, and, as we approach the halfway point kind of August, that certainly would be interesting to add another piece. But looks like Dylan Fairchild's going to be that guy at that right guard spot. How he does, we will see. there were some good moments in the game from Lucas Patrick. Excuse me, not Fairchild on the left guard spot, Lucas Patrick on the right guard spot. But certainly some good things there from Patrick, but a lot of question marks there as well. We'll see. I think the guards obviously are going to be the weak links along this offensive line, maybe even really just more broadly this offense as well. But you feel a lot better about Dylan Fairchild. Lucas Patrick has some work to do. Obviously got beat a few times, had the penalty, but at the end of the day, it looks like he's kind of separating himself to be the lead guy at that right guard spot for Cincinnati. Let's talk Chase Brown. Guy's unbelievable, right? I think we saw that last year, but it seems like he kind of has an even new element to his game. Obviously, he's really fresh right now as it's the preseason, and what he can do in the run game, what he can do in the pass game, was blocking well, protecting well. That guy, for if no one's open, Joe Burrow can dump it off to him, and he can make things happen. Chase Brown was awesome in this football game. And just me personally, I don't think we need to see Chase Brown again in the preseason. I'm sure he will play with the rest of the starters against the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football, but, he took some massive hits last night, and obviously it comes with the position of playing running back. You're going to take a lot of hits, but I'm good as far as seeing Chase Brown. I was ready for him to be out of the game when he came out, right? Taj Brooks came in, but he looked really, really good, and I think people should be really, really excited about what Chase Brown can do for this football team in 2025 and beyond. So that's some of the good things that we saw, but a lot of bad things took place in this football game as well. As I mentioned at the top, you lost 34-27. In a lot of ways, it felt like a 2024 regular season game, right? Joe Burrow and the boys cooking offensively, scoring points, and defensively, you pretty much picked up right where you left off, right? That opening drive, Tanner McKee was fantastic in this ball game. He sliced and diced your ones and then sliced and diced your twos as well out there on the football field last night, and certainly that is a concern, right? You didn't have all of your guys, right? Obviously, your two best corners, probably CTB and Dax Hill, were not out there. It was a rough go for Josh Newton in the beginning. DJ Turner didn't look great as well at those corner spots, and lots of gaping holes as well for Will Shipley, particularly there on that first drive. And the defensive line wasn't great, the linebackers weren't great, safeties weren't great, right? It was just kind of lots of issues that we saw last season, and it kind of carried over a little bit, certainly here to this preseason. Another guy that had a really bad game is DJ Ivey, right? A couple of procedural penalties, lined up offsides on the field goal, allows Philly to bring out their offense and ultimately score points on that drive. He got beat a couple of times. Slant route, he kind of got spun around. He got beat deep as well. I'm a DJ Ivey guy. I said that yesterday before the game, but it was not a pretty showing for DJ Ivey on the defensive side of the football. So lots for Cincinnati to clean up defensively. Obviously, Al Golden's first game calling the shots as the defensive coordinator, but really going to be interested to see the improvement that happens, hopefully the improvement that happens from yesterday's game to Monday night against the Washington Commanders. And you could tell after the game, Zach Taylor was not happy, right? Obviously the Bengals have, they've lost 7 consecutive preseason games, and you were out there, you had your ones out there for a couple of drives against Philadelphia's twos. Sirianni didn't play any of his ones. And I think Cincinnati was trying to win that football game just to be like, hey, all right, we're back. We've got some positive momentum here, and they didn't play good enough to win the football game. Of course, giving up 34 points. It could have been a lot worse than that as well. Taylor was frustrated. He was saying, hey, the whole team's got to be better. The procedural stuff, it's unacceptable, something we can't tolerate. It's got to be cleaned up. Obviously, we all agree with that sentiment from Zach Taylor, but for a preseason game, he was pretty fired up at the podium and pretty ticked off about how Cincinnati played. I think they really were trying to win the game, considering it was even only just a preseason game, but the Bengals took that game very seriously. They played their starters a lot more than lots of people do in the league, and it didn't work out, as they still gave up 34 points, and obviously that was an issue in the game for the Cincinnati Bengals. Do want to make note, Shemar Stewart, he had a very interesting game, right? He wasn't out there with the ones. He was out there with the twos, and I was intrigued about what we saw from Shemar Stewart in this game, and it feels like only a matter of time before he gets bumped up and he is out there with the ones. It'll be interesting to see if we see that in next week on Monday Night Football against the Commanders. part of what I really loved with Shemar Stewart was the versatility. If you remember, there was a 3rd and I believe 5 last night where Stewart was in the ball game, and Osai and Murphy were still in the ball game, and those were your edge guys. And Stewart lined up on the interior, so that's something that Al Golden really loves. He has that flexibility to align him at different spots across the offensive line. He forced some pressures last night. He was in the backfield of Philadelphia. He was disruptive, and for game number 1, got to be pretty happy with where you're at with Shemar Stewart. Certainly didn't look fully in football shape, looked a little gassed out there at times on the football field. Hopefully that is something that can get cleaned up for Shemar Stewart. But, it feels like only a matter of time before he gets elevated. I think he should be the starter opposite, hopefully, fingers crossed, Trey Hendrickson week 1 against Cleveland. Who he would replace now prior to Hendrickson coming back. Is it Myles Murphy? Is it Joseph Osai? I probably would replace Osai myself, but we'll see. I think you got to be pretty intrigued about what you saw from Cincinnati. But you've got issues at the corner spot. We know this. CTB has to be a lot better when he comes back. Dax Hill's got to pick up where he left off before his injury. Lots of pressure on those guys. We know Al Golden, of course, loves to run his man coverage. So, the Bengals, their corners got beat a lot. They missed tackles. They're procedurally making mistakes, right? Being offsides, things of that nature. Lots to clean up in this football game. And don't want to overreact too much, but defensively, you make this change, you bring in Al Golden, and it's more of the same for this Bengals defense here, at least in this preseason opener. Before we get out of here, do want to mention Braylon Lux, right? Your UDFA out of Texas Tech at kind of that slot spot. He's wearing Mike Hilton's 21, and at times last night he looked like Mike Hilton. He had an opportunity he was in the backfield and just missed the tackle. Would have been an incredible play, something everybody would have been talking about had he made that play. But keep your eye on Braylon Lux. I'm kind of rooting for him to make this team for Cincinnati. He's kind of a smaller guy, undersized guy, but he flies around and he makes football plays and causes havoc. And he reminds you of Mike Hilton, not just because he's wearing 21, but it also the way he plays and his play style certainly reminds you of Mike Hilton a little bit as well. So there you have it. Cincinnati drops their preseason opener against Philadelphia Eagles. They will be back in action on Monday against the Washington Commanders. Plenty to clean up. Some good, some bad, as there always is in the preseason. Don't want to overreact too much, but definitely reason to be concerned on the defensive side of the football.